In Genesis chapter 48 today, we're going to look at a pretty emotional scene around the deathbed of Jacob. We know that Jacob's been sick for quite some time, and his death is really drawing near. Joseph gets word of it. He gets his two sons and immediately comes to see Jacob to receive a blessing. And when they arrive, Jacob has mustered up enough strength to sit up to have this encounter with them. And Jacob begins to tell them of the promises of God, the encounter he had had with God before, how God would multiply and make his name great. And he does something a little unusual here. He says that he is going to take these two sons, Ephraim and Manasseh, and he's going to take them and actually make them his own sons. Instead of just grandsons, they're going to be direct heirs of his. And he takes them both. He's a little hard of seeing because of his old age and just being sick, and so he asks to make sure, are these the boys? And they are. And he takes them both and he begins just to hold them, and Joseph sees this and moves them back and comes up and just wants to be a part of this embrace as well. Pretty emotional moment again, knowing that his dad's about to pass away. And then comes the time for the blessing. And so he's going to bless these two boys, Ephraim and Manasseh. And Joseph wants to make sure that the oldest gets the biggest blessing. And so he positions Manasseh at Joseph's right hand, which would be signify the blessing of the greatest nature, and Ephraim at the left hand. And if you remember Jacob in his own life, he actually stole a birthright and a blessing away from his brother. He tricked his father into that. And so it's kind of interesting just to think about in this moment, but he knows that Ephraim is actually the one that's supposed to get this blessing, this birthright, this the biggest blessing. And so right before he blesses them and begins this blessing, he crosses his hands over and he places them on them and he begins to bless them. And Joseph sees what's happening. He stops, like, hey, I think you got this wrong. No, you've got them on the wrong places here. And Jacob says, no. He says, Manasseh is going to be great, but Ephraim's going to be even greater. And so he blesses them. And then the time comes for him to bless Joseph as well. And the Bible tells us that he said to Joseph, look, I'm about to die. Just think about this, how emotional this must be, but God will be with you and will bring you back to the land of your fathers. Over and above what I'm giving your brothers, I'm giving you the one mountain slope that I took from the Amorites with my sword and bow. And so in this moment, kind of as a last thing to his son Joseph, he says, God will be with you. I love the fact that he says this because he knows firsthand of the protection of God. He is blessing and making this promise from firsthand knowledge because he's seen God protect him time and time again and provide in his life. So again, what an emotional moment this was for the family. But even till Jacob's death, he still believes in the goodness and the promises, protection of God. So I hope that encouraged you today and that we look to God for that same protection.